Right. Okay, so it looks like we are live now. Um, let's put this on just for a good thumbnail. There we go, so everyone knows where we're at. Fantastic. So let's get started. So I put on a welcome, Scott. I put on a kind of a bold title there in a description in our live that your newsletter is killing your email list, and I think people don't realize the situation around a newsletter. So let's just kind of and why that's impacting your list, your specifically your email list. So let's just define what we mean by a newsletter. A newsletter
Yeah.
is a long email. It's probably talking about upcoming events. It's probably talking about new promotions, new listings of product, all that kind of stuff. And so in there, it's going to be a long text. There's going to be a lot to talk about, and there's going to be lots of links, lots of pictures. And as a result, a bunch of things are going to happen on the big three side. So when we say the big three, we're talking about Gmail, Microsoft, Yahoo. Right. And so, Scott, what do we mean when we say it's killing your list? What fundamentally happens inside the body of the email that's killing our list?
Yeah. So there's really a lot of things that are involved with the newsletter that kill your list, right? So one of the things, and you've already kind of touched upon it, these newsletters usually are beautifully designed. So using some sort of template, they have a lot of articles, they have a lot of pictures, they have a lot of links. And one of the things that multiple studies have shown is that when you give somebody too many options, they end up doing nothing.
Correct.
Right. And so think about it. When was the last time you went to a fast food restaurant and you were waiting in line and the person ahead of you was standing there staring and looking at the menu and could not make up their mind, trying to figure out what they want? Oh, the chicken sandwich sounds really good. Well, you know what? I like the fish. Oh, they have really good burgers. Yeah. And they just can't make up their mind what they actually want. And then what makes it even worse? I'm going to do the hamburger. Okay, cool. So they step up and then they start to place their order. And then the person taking the order asks them, well, what all would you like on that? We have these 15 different toppings and now it's like even more confusing and they're layering on and they can't make a decision. The same thing happens with your email newsletter. Remember, and last month, remember we talked about this, that most people check email on their phone.
Yep.
That's what do we call that? We call that a mobile device, right?
Yep.
So for the most part, when people are on their mobile device, they don't have intentions of staying on there for lengthy periods of time. They're consuming things quickly. And if you have this lengthy newsletter, their first reaction is they're going to glance over it. And the next thought that they're going to have, I'll get back to that later.
Yep.
And then guess what?
They never
never comes, right? And then your newsletter gets buried in the flood of emails that fill up their inbox, and then it's forgotten about, and they never take any action on it, even though you might have some really compelling things that they were interested in because of your subject line, because of the titles that you're putting for your blog post or whatever. But it's basically overwhelm. And when people have too many options and they can't immediately make a decision, they don't make one.
So what I heard there is two things. One is the size of the list. For all you Pink Floyd fans, I got my Pink Floyd shirt on. For everything that's on that email, people can't make a choice. And what ends up happening is, remember we speak about in both yesterday with Paul and today again here, we're going to talk about engagement. And so how do we deal with engagement? Well, engagement is clicking. It's taking action and clicking through that email to go and do something or forwarding it off to somebody. But overwhelm, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to click. And I think, Scott, did I send you an email I think it was last week or the week before from a wine industry expert, and I lost count. I think there was 37 unique links in that email.
Yeah.
Yeah. You remember that one? And so
it's crazy.
Yeah. And I mean, I knew what I was looking for and I still had a hard time finding it.
Yeah.
So that's from the side of, am I getting engagement? But
Yeah.
now let's talk about the other side, and let's talk about the technical component and what's happening in terms of the big three. What are they seeing when you send that newsletter out? What do they see?
Yeah. So the big three, when they're looking at that email, they're looking at how many links do you have, right? So the rule of thumb is typically you want to have no more than 3 total links in an email.
Right.
Now, that does not mean unique links. Okay. That doesn't mean link 1 goes to this place, link 2 goes to this place, link 3 goes to this place. That means 3 links total. They could all point to the same place, but you don't want more than 3 links, because
And
those
and
providers, each of those providers, they look at those, because if you're using a platform like MailChimp or Keep or something like that, they're kind of masking what's behind that link, right? So it's going to have some sort of tracking link that they put over that. And every tracking link is going to be different, so that way, when you look at your reports in your software, you can see, oh, they clicked that particular link
right.
as opposed to link number 3. And so all of those links look different to Microsoft, Google, and Yahoo. So that's why if you've got, 5 different links in there, even though they all point to the same place, Microsoft says, wait a minute, you got 5 links.
Right.
We don't know where those are going.
But what about the footer? So in the footer, I'm going to have a link to my website, maybe to my store, maybe my social media. And if we're on, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, and website, maybe a reservation page, that's 6 just in your footer.
Yeah. Which, of course,
So
you
yeah,
can get rid of all of those social media links.
yeah,
Again, it goes back to what we were just talking about with content. The purpose of your email should be to get the reader to do the one thing that you want them to do. And it can't be a generic, well, I'm sending out a newsletter, I want them to click on a link. I don't care which link they click on. I just want them to click on a link. No. That
right.
does not count as what's the one thing that you want them to do. What is the ultimate action that you really want that reader to take? Do you want them to go check out a new wine? Do you want them to sign up for an event? Do you want them to read this really awesome article that you just wrote about, whatever? Or do you want them to go watch an interview that you had by being interviewed by a local TV station?
Right.
What's the one outcome? If you're putting social media links in your website, number one, that's distracting your audience from doing the one thing that you want them to do.
Yep.
And guess what? If they go to your Instagram, chances are they're probably not coming back to your email and doing anything else. And I had
No,
this
they're gone.
conversation the other day with the client. They were like, well, what do you think about, having different, social media links in your emails? And I said, there probably are not any studies out there on this, because I don't know that there's an easy way to actually track this. But I am sure that if they did surveys or studies, that the number of people that actually subscribed to your YouTube channel, followed your Instagram, or liked your Facebook page from an email would be very, very, very minimal.
Unless that's the call to action.
Unless that's the call
Unless
to
the
action.
email says, join our Facebook group,
Right. Yeah, exactly.
that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you say that. I know I've done this in the past, and Evan was the one who clued us on to this. This is a mutual friend of ours, and eventually, hopefully, we'll get Evan on to do some content discussions and a little bit of deep diving type stuff. But about a year and a half ago, Evan was explaining to me that he had a client that even the emails that were coming out of his Outlook account were having trouble reaching the inbox, and specifically getting into the primary section of the inbox. A lot of B2C clients were on that list. And so we looked at the email, and he had every single social portfolio or social package was listed on the bottom of his email in his footer, plus a calendar link, plus a bio link, plus a about us link. So I think, if I remember correctly, it was like 9 or 10 links were in the footer. And then the email had nothing in it. Simply, hey, Joe, let's confirm that we're going to be meeting at such and such a time on this date. And the client never received that email. And so when he went in and looked at it, he's like, oh, hold on, you've got 9 or 10 links in your email. Took all of that off the footer and then starting sending emails out. And lo and behold, they started getting reached and getting open and responded to. So I did that here specifically at this winery, and we took off all the social media links. Everything came off the footer. So all now it just simply says is, here's what we're doing. Here's our newsletter. And in the newsletter, we're adding, these 5 pieces of information. Here's what you're going to get. And oh, by the way, at the bottom of the newsletter, there is, at the bottom of the newsletter, there's an offer for this month's promotion. We're in Valentine's season, as you can tell behind me. So it's, come and carry on the romance through the month. And I think is what the tagline was. And so that email we're getting from a click-through rate. So it's not going out to everyone, but the open rate is around 82, 83% last time I checked a couple of days ago. But more importantly, the click-through rate was like 61%. So what
And that's
was that tell?
unheard of.
What does that tell you, right? That tells you that one link, one call to action, and in a segmented, targeted list with proper authentication, all that stuff, you get the actions that you're looking for. And then what we just to kind of nerd out here a little bit, I put Hotjar on all of the landing pages. Hotjar is a free plugin for WordPress. You can track the behavior on the site and all that stuff. And so what I was finding is that a lot of people were scrolling and they were stopping at the blog post. And then they were going over to the blog post and not going down to the offer. So we went and rearranged that, and people were skimming past the offer, going to the blog post, then they leave the page. But what I found, and we set it up so that it opened up in a new tab, is they were coming back and they were actually going and doing the offer, because the discussion was just, I think the blog post was something around the idea of what are you doing for Valentine's Day, and it can be a whole month of love and that kind of thing. And so they came back to the offer to sign up and book literally inside this room for events on the weekends. So it's a little bit of trial and error, but I think the message there is, by keeping it, as Scott said, by keeping it very clear, very concise, removing all of these extra links, giving a very specific call to action. And if you do have all that information, put that information on a blog post, put that on a landing page on your website, and let that be the brochure, the beautiful, the wordy, the verbose, all of that, and let the email do its job, which is to get them there. Right.
So
Now,
two things from what, just kind of add a little bit. So you had 85% ish open rate and a 60 some odd percent, click through rate. I challenge anybody listening to this to have anything close to that.
Yep.
Because every client that I've worked with and every prospect that I've met with, literally nobody comes close to that. I had a conversation with somebody earlier this week, and they said, I get a 35% open rate on my list, and they seem so proud of it. And I said, actually, compared to everybody else, that's pretty darn good.
Yep.
But there's so much more. 65% of your people are not hearing from you, and that's bad. And it literally you can be in the 70s, 80s, even the 90% in open rate. So I challenge you, this stuff is important. And if you think it takes a lot of work to do this stuff, it really doesn't. It takes some time and it takes some digging, figure out, the right levers to pull at the right time. But once you do that, man, the floodgates open, for
absolutely.
it. One other piece too, on the links that we're talking about while we're on social media links, I've set up monitoring in my software to monitor LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube, okay, and Instagram, just to see if they ever land on a block list. LinkedIn about 3 weeks ago was on a block list for about 24 hours. LinkedIn. So if you were to send out any emails that had a LinkedIn link in it to your LinkedIn profile, to your LinkedIn page during that 24-hour period, especially if you were sending to Microsoft people, chances are that email would not have gotten delivered.
Right.
And if it would have, it probably would have landed in junk or spam. And again, that's nothing that you have control over. You can't control LinkedIn being on a block list, but let me tell you, you can control it being in your email.
And again, that's really the importance behind this is understanding kind of how all of these little pieces impact the deliverability of your emails to ultimately reach the inbox. Now, Scott, let's talk briefly for a moment about. I mean, we touched upon the fact that the big three will see an email with all of these links in it
Mhm.
as a marketing message. You will see it as spam. But what happens from the user perspective if they either stop opening it because they're like, "Oh, here's another newsletter," or even worse, I saw there's one wonder I'm following right now, and their email subject comes out as "wine blast." And it literally says blast, like you don't blast your list, but whatever. And so, uh, and again, there are another 25 links in their email. So my behavior as a recipient, so I'm the receiver of that email. What in my behavior? What is that telling the big three?
Yeah. So it is one of those things that, like everybody, just stop for a second and ask yourself, when was the last time you woke up in the morning and you said, I'm going to sign up for an email newsletter today? Crickets, right?
Right.
Nobody wants an email newsletter. Our inboxes are flooded. And so what happens is like they're going to look at the first few and they might check some things out, but eventually it goes back to what I was saying. We are all pressed for time. We mostly check our email on our mobile devices. We're presented with too many options, so we'll get to it later. Later never comes. And the more that they see this newsletter, this marketing message, then they're not inclined to open it. They're like, I know what that is. I'll get to that later. And when that happens, the big three providers, they look at it on a scale of two things, and then your mail, the server that you're using, so MailChimp, Keep, or whatever, they also look at it. So it's really looked at from three different angles. So number one, let's say you're emailing to me, okay, your newsletter. I use Google Workspace as my email provider, my mailbox provider. All right. So I get your first few emails. Cool. I'm opening them up. I'm going to check out some links. I'm going to click on some things. And then after a period of time, I see it and I'm like, I don't want to do anything with it. So I just let it sit in my email inbox. I do nothing with it. And then finally, I'm like, I got to get this stuff cleaned up. So I'm just going to drag it to trash. I'm going to junk it. And then as time goes on, then I start getting those messages. And instead of letting them sit there thinking I'll get to them later, I'm like, I don't even want to deal with this. Boom, to the trash you go.
Yep.
So Google is going to look at me and they're going to say, it's obvious you don't want to get this email. So we're not even going to put it into your inbox. We're just going to put it right into spam. That way we'll clear it out automatically after 30 days and you don't have to deal with it. Thank you, Google. I appreciate that. You're saving me a lot of time, but that's bad for you as the marketer trying to get a message to me. So it's looking at the individual. What's that individual doing? Now, let's say that your email list is 500 people on Google. All right. What is the majority of that list doing with your emails? If they're doing the same thing that I'm doing, guess where that email is going for all 500 of those people?
Yep.
Spam. All right. Now, let's say that you've got 300 people that are regularly interacting with your email, and you've got 200 that are like me going straight to spam. The likelihood of the 300 regularly getting it in their inbox is dramatically reduced because you've got a good portion, maybe not a majority, but a good portion of your list who aren't engaging with that email.
And I think Scott, the other point to that is as and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Because as those 300, they don't get 100% of the emails, they might get 95 or 90. So
Yeah.
as that keeps on happening, and then people go on vacation, they go on a holiday, they get busy, then all of a sudden those 300, just by the nature of life, begin to stop opening up those emails, and Google
Yep.
begins to see that, and then more and more and more. And so it basically becomes the fact that if you keep on emailing the unengaged list, then you're going to continue to create this problem. So the solution there is stop emailing the 200 that aren't engaging. And how do we
Yep.
know they're not engaging? They're not opening, but more importantly, they're not clicking. Right.
Yep.
And so open isn't what it used to be. Ooh, we got I got 82% open rates. I honestly don't care about that. I
Yeah.
care about clicks, because the click proves without a shadow of a doubt that there is another person. Well, actually, that's not true. There are still bots out there that are doing this, but for the most part, let's just take the bot conversation out of here. And let's say there's a human on the other end, and they've clicked on that link, and so now I know. But more importantly, Google, the big three, Google, Yahoo, and Microsoft, know that there's somebody there clicking on that link, and they're like, "Oh, okay, cool. People are interacting." So
Yeah.
it really behooves you to get rid of the inactive people on your list. I know people talk about vanity and, oh, my list is so big and all of that kind of stuff, and we talk to leadership and management about the size of our list, and I mean, I just had that conversation the other day with a client where it's like, I'm recommending you cut 7,000 people off your list. And he's like, "Oh my
Oh
God,
my
why?
gosh,
Why?
no.
Why do that?" I know. I'm like, "Because they haven't opened an email in 9 months." Like,
Yeah.
really? You don't need them. And so,
The
um,
conversation I had earlier this week goes, remember I mentioned that he was proud of his 35% open rate for
right.
his list that he actually took over for this nonprofit organization. He looked at it and like pruned the heck out of it because so many people were not engaging with the emails. The open rates were like, I think he told me like they were like 3% on the open rate when he kind of took it over. And so when he started like, nope, these people aren't engaging, and he just stopped emailing them, it didn't take him long to get to that 35%. So for him,
Yeah.
that was a marked improvement.
Yeah, and it's all where you start from too. And I think I guess that's the last point we'll leave on the public side of things, and we'll jump over to the member section. Is that it takes a while for you to train the big three. It's like reputation, right? You don't walk in day one with a perfect reputation. It takes you a while to build that reputation up, even if you're at work or wherever it is.
Yeah.
You make a mistake like this, and it very quickly that will erode. So it's that they very quickly take action against you, and now you have a bigger hurdle to overcome, because now you've got to train and teach Google and Yahoo and Microsoft that, okay, I'm not that guy anymore, right? I've cleaned up my act, right? And they're like, yeah, but you could always relapse. And it's kind of that whole thing that we need to make sure we talk about, and make sure you understand that doesn't happen overnight. It
Yeah.
could take a month or 2 months, sometimes longer, but it's that consistency, right? So anyway, we can talk more about that later, but we're gonna say goodbye to our public friends here, and we are going to jump into the member section. So I'm just going to go ahead and turn some of these off. Let's see, that one there, public, that one goes away. So that one goes away. That one goes away. I think, is this what we want? Yeah. Public. It's simple. Heroes. Oh no, hold on. I want that off. I don't want this on. There we go. Perfect.